I'm going to start on this, CG security policy and AI. The policy itself has been around for years and years, and now here comes this, I would say, relatively new advances when we think about new forms of AI, like generative AI, that create questions on how you maintain that compliance as the technology is moving so quickly. As Chris mentioned, my name is Rick Zeck. I'm with Microsoft and have spent a career mostly on technology solutions for public safety, and then you can't do that without having a clear focus on compliance. And so my world has changed over time from the solutions to support public safety to helping public safety agencies of all kinds deliver solutions to support their mission and do it in compliance with the related policy. So longtime Microsofter, longtime technologist. And again, so grateful for the chance to present today. I know because of the work that you do, you all work with the CG security policy in some way. It matters. The data matters. Control and compliance matters. But I'm going to start with a little bit of sort of policy foundations in order to then take a step forward and say, how does this apply to AI, particularly generative AI, where there's, in a sense, new things coming up that as opposed to, we looked at AI so much as looking backwards in the past, and now with generative AI and different new capabilities in AI, it's about creating and moving forward. So one thing I'm going to flag is, you see my email address there. My last slide has my email address again. I know each of us is going to cover a lot of material quickly. I would say, please reach out to me if you've got questions, you want to do a deeper dive. I'm happy to cover any and all of this in more detail after we've had a chance to talk today. So I'm going to move ahead. So again, I'm going to if my apologies for the folks who already know probably what the next slide or two covers, but it's a good grounding in the policy. It's not really a cybersecurity policy the way we look at other ways that you protect data in your organization. It's really a data protection standard. It's all about criminal justice information. Now, that starts with data you source from the FBI, but it gets commingled with every other bit of data from an agency. And so it's about managing the compliance of all of the data within an organization's boundary. And the central premise of it is in that first bullet, that part about no unescorted access to unencrypted criminal justice information. Like, at its foundation, that's what the policy is about. So you can't see this data unless you've been appropriately screened under the policy. And the policy's requirement is that every agency that manages data, criminal justice information in the cloud, has to screen the people. And so we work going back 10, 11 years with the FBI. So for Microsoft, the state CGIS systems agency, that agency in every state charged with responsibility for managing how the policy is implemented and followed in the state, now does the screening for the Microsoft people. That'll be important. So I saw somebody come up from California. Cal DOJ does that. In other states, it's the State Patrol is that CGIS systems agency. But again, it's this idea that as you think about confidentiality, it's the same approach. You can only see this data or even be in the presence of it unencrypted if you've been appropriately screened. Where this gets more complex is you see this part about the shared responsibility model. When an organization managed all of its information in its own data center, I always just say in your own basement, when everything lived in your own basement, then you were accountable to, let's say, the FBI as the regulator for criminal justice information. But you were also responsible for managing all of the controls to stay compliant. Once you go to the cloud, whether you're just using a cloud-based solution or using the cloud to host things for you that has criminal justice information, or importantly, AI is all cloud-based, right? And so at that point, you're still accountable to the regulator, but now you share responsibility with that cloud provider, that AI provider, for controlling the data in a way that supports your compliance with the policy. That shared responsibility is so important. And as we talk about, like, how do you engage with the vendors who support you? How do you engage with your own technology team? That shared responsibility model discussion should be part of what you do. Who does what is incredibly important. Very straightforward when it was just your people and your systems, but now you've got a partner truly in helping you to do this. Now, I'm going to be specific on Microsoft, but I'm going to talk a bit about how you do it in any world, which is goes back 10 years, 2014, launched a platform called Azure Government. And Azure Government is this cloud platform purpose-built for essentially two very sensitive regulated workloads in the US, and that is criminal justice information governed by the FBI's CJIS security policy and federal tax information governed by IRS publication 1075. Those two policies require, as we just talked about, screening for a person to be even in the presence of unencrypted information. So we built this platform very early, if you think about it, in the world of cloud. In 2014, we launched it, and it stores data in the US, and only the US is required for criminal justice information, et cetera. All of the people have been screened separately by the state so they can do it. But this is what I want you to focus on, because this is going to be the next slide or two. In this platform, Azure Government, don't think about it as like hosting. Don't think about it as we have a data center. Now, Microsoft is a data center. We just picked up some stuff from our data center. We moved it to their data center, and you're hosting it for us. That's not really what we're talking about. It's about establishing cloud is really software. It's not just hosting stuff for you. And so when we establish this platform, this cloud platform, we establish a boundary for the purpose of the CJIS security policy. So anything within operating, any of the services, even now we're going to talk about AI in a second, and your data, all operates inside of that boundary that we've established through Azure Government. Anything inside of that boundary, data, AI, the models that you use for AI, solutions that run inside of that cloud, inside of that boundary, are within the compliance boundary for the CJIS security policy. And that is really important as we start to say, now as we get to these advanced services, going back, Chris, to your question about confidentiality, that really lays the foundation for what do we mean? How can we use AI in a way that respects confidentiality and compliance? And this is what I would tell you this. All right, if you say there was a guy from Microsoft and I forgot what he said, remember one thing, it's the headline of the slide. You'd probably read it in the news about ChatGPT. Some of your people have probably played with it. I think in many organizations, they probably played a little too much with it in terms of sensitive data. So if you only walk away knowing that what we're talking about as Azure, our cloud platform, and what's called the Open AI service, which is the AI engine that you can use to do these amazing things. If you just walk away knowing that it's not ChatGPT, then I've been successful. If you want to get wonkier about it, we can talk later. We basically took that ChatGPT engine, if you will, but now we operate it inside of our factory, being sort of descriptive, like it runs inside of our cloud. It's not running from ChatGPT, the OpenAI people. It is entirely within that CJIS boundary. So you can run AI, you can operate systems using AI to support your mission and do it all within that CJIS boundary that I was talking about. Bottom of the slide is the other part that I want you to walk away from. If you do anything in AI this way, within that boundary, using this service, you don't share it with anybody. None of your work. And each of these bullets is important. We don't share it with that other company, OpenAI. It doesn't happen. We don't share it with other customers. We don't use your data to make the models better, period. If you decide you want to make the model better by what's called fine tuning, so it works a little more aligned to how you operate, any updates, any tuning you make are only available to you. Because it goes to your question about confidentiality. Like the first part is compliance. Can you do it in a way that's compliant? Yes, you can. It all happens within that CJIS boundary. Can you maintain the confidentiality? Yes, you can, because it all stays, in a sense, we build a little four walls inside of the cloud that is just your data, your models, all for AI, and no one else inside or outside of Azure, if you will, has any access to it. And that is critical to having that confidence to use new capabilities like AI in a way that, again, applies with the policy and respects the required confidentiality. Now, I want to give you an example, and you're going to see that I'm stealing a little thunder from Brent, but he doesn't mind. I wanted to give you an example of what does it actually look like? What does a solution look like when we talk about AI supporting the mission within a compliance boundary, respecting confidentiality. And it's a solution from Axon. And again, Brent Berkeley is going to present this in much greater detail than I am. But this idea of being able to use AI to take the audio out of police officers' video from their body-worn camera and have it generate that first draft. And I love the name, just like it's not final, nothing gets submitted. Brent will tell you all about this, but just to generate something new, which is a first cut at a report, is incredibly powerful. And I'm going to defer to Brent, who's a deep, deep expert on this. But this last part is important. Here is modern capability delivered by a vendor who
1
supports
minute.
the mission, and it's all within your compliance boundary, and it respects the confidentiality requirements of the data and of your department. So I wanted to do that as sort of an example of how does it work when it works the right way. Now, how do you get started? Somewhere in your office, you're already using AI. It's already happened, right? And I mean in an appropriate way, not just went to the web and did something crazy. I'll give you an example. I don't know this. You'll have to look. If you use Office 365, our sort of productivity, I hope you're using the government community cloud version. That's great. In it is something called Copilot, right? So you're going to hear from Microsoft. Copilot is our name for AI that we've embedded in lots of different solutions. So you may already have, as an example, AI running inside of Office that you use every day. And that's an important call out, which is sometimes there's a view that when an organization buys AI, it's going to be separate from everything else. It's going to come in a box called AI and it'll get delivered to your dock. And it's not. It's going to get delivered as new capabilities of things you already use. And that's why this part about the policy is so important. You don't have time to start on the policies later for when you're going to start using AI, because in different ways you're already using it. And so start by understanding where you're using it, develop the right policies to support its use, and then start to move forward in ways that support the mission. These likely costs, I know someone else from Microsoft presented to you in a previous meeting. I'm sharing these numbers. These are estimate numbers, but try to give you an order of magnitude on it. And then I'm going to close on the last part, which is
Rick, are these just about these numbers? Are these per person, per office? How do these numbers?
No, that would be it's almost project based to like do a quick proof of concept. There's your numbers. If you're in production, scaling by how many users are using it, because it's essentially all based on consumption. For something that you would do here, it's based on consumption. How many cloud resources are you using to support your, let's say, the AI project that you're working on? If you're talking about something like the AI capabilities that come into Office, those are actually done like by user. It's like, and now your version, now you as a user get the new AI capabilities. But I wanted to give them as sort of a rough estimate of how you can get started in a relatively small way and then start to scale up. And that brings me to the last piece, which
I'm sorry, just to stop one more time.
Yeah,
what you're talking about is the project would be to build this secure area within the Azure cloud for your data. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you might say for a prosecutor's office, we're going to use AI in a very specific way by bringing together case files to do some way to connect them. I'm totally freewheeling that. It's that sort of project I'm talking about, where you're going to define an objective, build out a quick proof of concept to demonstrate that you can actually use AI to deliver the outcomes you want. Then you move to a pilot, which says, okay, now we're going to look at an operational version of it on a small scale. And then when we're done, we're going to roll it out more broadly. And then those cost accruals, because you're not buying a box of something, think of it more like the power company, where you're using resources and you're getting billed for those resources. So you can see, start very small to say we can actually answer the question this way, then do a small pilot to make sure all the connections work, and now you can scale it out from there.
Got it.
And then the last part, and it's a really good setup, which is, I don't know where everybody's from. I know there are a lot of folks from across the country. Somewhere there is a Microsoft account team who you may not know, who may not know you, but will absolutely want to help you through this process. And so if you know who they are, that's awesome. Please engage them. If you don't know who they are, I'm about to put my email address up, like ask me and I'll get you connected to the right people. And then the last thing I do is this grants part. Microsoft is I think, very progressive model here that's called a Justice Reform Initiative, which is looking very broadly from people trying to, how can technology be used to support the justice system in ways that I think align to your organization's missions as well? As we look about fair and equitable criminal justice system, this is what the Justice Reform Initiative is about. So they do grants in some ways. Sometimes they partner with agencies around initiatives that support these goals. So if that's also interesting, again, I'm about to put my email address up. Use me as the way that you get connected to them, and we can go from there. So